Welcome to the Champion Within podcast, your go-to spot for unlocking a winning mindset. Whether you're an athlete chasing greatness, a parent cheering from the sidelines, a coach leading the charge, or an educator shaping young minds, this pod party is for you. Hey, if we haven't met before, I'm Kate McCauley, your pod party host, former educator turned mindset mentor. I get to meet people where they are and get them to where they want to go. Expect awesome guest conversations with athletes, some solo chats to level up, and always leave this pod party with quick, powerful strategies to help you and your crew push past limits, embrace challenges, and crush goals both on and off the field. Let's tap into the champion within, because greatness is just a mindset away. Welcome back to the Champion Within podcast. I'm your host, Kate McCauley. Joining me is Isaiah Covington, the performance coach for the Boston Celtics. Isaiah is in his 5th season with the Celtics, but before that, he spent time with the Golden State Warriors, the Indiana Pacers, and even served as the performance coach for the Nigerian national basketball team at the 2021 Olympics in Tokyo. Isaiah has an impressive background with a bachelor's degree in movement science, 2 master's degrees, and years of experience helping athletes perform at their absolute best. Isaiah not only shares incredible advice on mindset and performance, but he also dives into the power of networking and how it has been the key to his journey. Isaiah reveals that even some of the elite athletes you watch play deal with the same struggles many of us face, balancing it all. Sure, their circumstances may be a bit different, but trust me, you'll want to steal his advice on handling it. I was absolutely obsessed with the story he shared about how the Celtics experienced something before every single game last season. This has never been shared publicly, and it's one of those things that I know will have my coaches out there, whether you're a coach at the youth level or an elite level, leaning in and thinking about how you can apply this with your own athletes. It's all about getting locked in, and as he tells us, it's rooted in mindset. Let's jump into this powerful conversation. I have the honor today to talk to one of my favorite students. Guess what? Teachers actually do have favorite students. So if you are a teacher who listens to my podcast, you don't have to tell the parents who that is in your class right now. Now that I'm not in the classroom anymore and I get to do some different things, loving my athletes, my teachers, even some people in the corporate space, I can be honest and say, I like some of those kids more than others. This guest today is one of those former students. I feel like this was so long ago. I was probably a brand new teacher, right? So we'll just pretend that was the case. It feels like a long time ago. And I have watched his journey a little bit, but I don't know that much about it. So I'm going to learn alongside you. Today, I have the honor of speaking with Isaiah Covington, the performance coach for the Boston Celtics. How you doing, Isaiah?
I'm doing great. So good to see you. I'm so happy to be here today and talk. And, like you said, obviously, you know me many years ago, but, there was a big gap in between when we reconnected. So I'm definitely happy to share and just talk.
Yeah, I can't wait to steal some of your wisdom for myself and for the athletes I get to love now. I know the people listening are probably going to be pausing, rewinding, writing things down. Before we jump into what you're doing right now, I have to ask you, because sometimes people tell me that this is happening for them or happened for them in the past. Sometimes they're like, not really. When you were younger, whether it was high school or maybe it was college or right after college, did you do anything, maybe you didn't know at the time that it was connected to mindset, any type of work where you saw yourself doing what you do now? Maybe not the exact thing, or maybe it was the exact thing, but did you have any moment like that? Or did you use any of those types of visualization tools to help you in this journey?
Yeah, no, 100%. And I knew I knew the career path that I wanted to have since high school. I would write down everything that I needed to do. And then for me, it was always about okay, this is first thing on my checklist. Check that off, right? Now I'm going to move on to the next thing. And for some reason, looking at that, and I still do that to this day, whether it's something I'm trying to accomplish or something I just know I need to get done. me visualizing it and then, when I have to do it, check it off. Like that's just kind of always been my thing now for, since high school.
That's an amazing tool. Almost like an achievement journal,
Yes.
so to speak, and
Yes.
you're checking it off.
Yep.
So in the beginning, did you feel like it was something that was far from your reach, or were you writing these goals down when you were already doing things that were aligned with being a performance coach? Or was it something that was way far out in the future for you when you first started that?
Yeah, no, it definitely was way far out in the future. I mean, obviously I knew that professional sports was the highest level, but I just really kind of never seen myself there. I always, you kind of looked at colleges, and around that time, like strength and conditioning was starting to get popular in high school. So I kind of figured that maybe you need to start there and then obviously work my way up, and which I did in my own capacity. But when I was in high school and college, that was really like my thought process. I was just like, there was minimal professional strength and conditioning jobs.
When did you have a shift in your mindset? Because when I'm working with athletes, whether middle school or high school, we do these visualizations and I guide them through. They'll write down what they feel after it. They set their goals. It is hard because your brain is telling you, are you kidding me? Like, who do you think you are? You're not going to go and work in the professional level, because our brain is trying to keep us safe. We want to stay comfortable. It's science. But did you have a moment that you can think, wow, this was a point where my mindset really changed and I realized this is a possibility for me?
Yes, for sure. And I would say I started around 11th grade in high school, but I guess in my generation, that's kind of when social media really started to like creep in, and, with Facebook and MySpace and all that type of stuff. I got to college, but I created a LinkedIn. LinkedIn, I started reaching out to people in pro sports, and we had internet and stuff like that, but you couldn't really find people like contact information and things like that. And when I was on LinkedIn, I just started reaching out to every professional strength coach trying to gain advice, and then people start responding. And now I'm like, I'm having conversations now with like professional strength and conditioning coaches, and, started off as just a LinkedIn message and turned into a phone call, or a LinkedIn message to an email to a phone call. And like, now I'm like, I'm actually talking to these people and they're telling me how it's a possibility that I can get into the league, and that they're giving me steps I need to take. And from there, I was just like, now it is like actually real. Actually talking to someone that's in the field, trying to gain connections and contacts. And for me, that's when I guess it was so far-fetched in the past, and the bridge started getting smaller and smaller. And,
right. Sorry to interrupt you.
So no, I would say that probably was the shift. From there, it became applying for jobs and getting selected for interviews, and eventually getting a job, which I'm sure we'll get into later.
Definitely. I really wanted to ask that because sometimes when I am doing those exercises with students, and I'm sure it had a lot to do with your health and phys ed teacher back in like 11th grade. Hit everyone. I don't actually know if you were in my 11th grade class. I was thinking back to, I can remember him sitting there in class, but I have no memory what grade that was. I feel like sometimes if you were one of the really good kids, I just remember the fun moments. And if it was somebody who did something crazy, I'm like, I remember you did that in 9th grade. But anyway, I think it's important for the parents who listen to my podcast, if they share this with one of their student athletes, that you are going to have moments when you are going through this journey, whether it's to work in the professional level, to play at the college level, professional level, whatever it might be. Maybe it's not even sports. Maybe you listen to my podcast for a mindset in general. You need to realize that there are going to be times when you think that's so far out into the future. Then you have that moment. Maybe it is a LinkedIn example, like Isaiah is saying, that, wow, these people are writing back to me. So what he did there is he took action. It could have been very easy for you to make those connections and then never send the message. That is the part that the athletes I work with and students, when I go in the classrooms, they write these goals out and say, this is what we're going to do. Many of them do not take action. When you hear Isaiah saying, I sent the message, and then he was talking about interviews, going and doing the thing, you have to take the action. I'm glad you talked about that, because then you realize, oh, wow, this is a possibility for me, and your mindset starts to shift. So tell us, where did the journey take you from there?
I mentioned in high school, I knew I wanted to career path. And one thing about me, once I'm passionate about something, that becomes my life. So from there, I'm starting to Google all the top programs. All the top college programs that have exercise science, kinesiology. I knew that I wanted to major in that. I started applying to schools. Eventually settled on Delaware State University. They had a exercise science program. I talked to some people that were in the program. They did great things about it. My older brother attended there many years back. My brother-in-law went there. So I kind of had some family connections there as well. From there, as soon as I got on campus, I wanted to get involved. I wanted to get involved on campus, and then I also wanted to get involved in my major and get internships in the strength and conditioning field. And I'll say that's really kind of where my life turned, obviously in a positive way, but from a professional level, and then also, I guess, personal development. I guess to speak on a personal development side, I got really involved in like student government, student activities from like when I first got on campus, and I've always been like a social person kind of growing up, but like never really in those type of roles. I think that's where I would say, when I look back at my career now, that was like the start of developing leadership qualities.
Of those leadership qualities, what would you say is the most important, or that leadership quality that has stayed with you, that maybe you joined that organization at Delaware and you still use some of those skills that you gained? If you had to pick one or two, what would you say?
I would say if I'm picking one, is definitely being able to work amongst a group towards one common goal. That has been the one thing that's always been constant. There will always be difference of opinion, knowing how to disagree with someone else, but then still commit. If everyone doesn't vote for, what I'm proposing, and it goes the other way, I still have to commit. Work under different medical groups in the NBA, in which we all work under team. Even right now, the Boston Celtics have core values in which our medical group has to follow those core values. And then even within the medical group, strength and conditioning has to follow those core values, so just being able to work together, manage different personalities, manage opinions.
I think that's something that sometimes athletes and students in general think, I don't have time to do these things. My own children included will say to me, I don't have enough time to do that. My daughter actually was talking about tomorrow's club day at school and they're going to set up all these different clubs. I said, go talk to the different tables.
Sure.
And again, anyone who's listening, it's not just to say, look at this on my resume. It's to gain those skills, because you will use them later in life and you don't see it right away. But like Isaiah is saying right now, he uses that every single day. There's going to be days where he has to rise to be the leader, or he has to cooperate with the group. If you don't let yourself be in that situation and learn those skills, you're going to be at a disadvantage, in my opinion. Speaking of learning and having to do things that are, sometimes uncomfortable or hard to do if, someone doesn't have those skills, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. I'm sure you have experienced, you have a lot of success, and we're going to talk about, how you got to the Celtics, because you've been a lot of different places that are really cool. I do want you to share, before we talk about, what you're doing now and where you've been. Is there a moment, just like you were thinking about that mindset shift of, wow, this is possible for me? Is there a moment where you can think, this was an epic fail, but it turned into a win, or I learned from this in some way and I saw growth somehow?
Sure. I actually have a great story for this, and it's something that took place this past season that only people really within the team know about it. And now that the season's over, I can share it. But so pretty much, and I wouldn't even say, just before I say it, it's not even something that really was a failure, but to your point, it was something that really just changed me as a person and got me out my shell. So before I say, are you familiar with, I guess, boxing or UFC?
Yeah, I was actually a kickboxer in college. So yeah.
Oh, okay, great to know.
Yeah. I am familiar.
I'm not sure if it happens too much in UFC, but I know in boxing, when there's 10 seconds left in the round, it's usually like a clapping sound, like a 3 claps. The fighters know that their time is, that the round's almost over. So before the start of last season, our head coach comes to me and says, "Hey, I have a job for you this year." And I'm like, "All right, what's up?" And he was like, "Have you ever, like I just asked you watch UFC or boxing, and when you hear that clap sound, what do you think?" And I think, oh, like it's the round's almost over. If I'm a fighter, I'm thinking I got 10 seconds left to try to lock in or do what I need to do. And so he goes, well, I'm going to get you these clappers. And before we do our team meeting before every game, I want you to come in the locker room, bang these sticks 3 times and say something to motivate the team. I'm not making this up. So my initial thought was, there's no way I could do this. Funny, because we were just laughing, talking about this today. But I was like, there's no way I can do this.
So hold on a minute. What are these clappers? This story is epic. I can't wait for people to hear this. But tell me, what are these clappers? Like, describe them.
I actually have them. I have, at the end of the year, I had everybody sign it. Because
you gotta show us if you can, but definitely describe it for the people who are listening on. We'll definitely share the video clip too, but people who are listening on maybe Apple.
So these are it right here.
Oh, so cool.
Yeah. So just to give you an example, I would come in the locker room and go. Everyone would like stop, get quiet, and then I would like say something, and that would be like. It was just.
Was it something different every time?
Yes. So it was. So he gave me something to say first, and it didn't really work out the first couple games. Like, in mind you, I've never done this. So people that's been on the team was looking at me like I'm crazy. Like nobody even knows this is a thing. Like it's just me and him know that.
They're like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah. So that thing didn't work out, and then he goes, "Honestly, like you can just say what you want." So then from there, I would. It would be something maybe against like another team that we're playing, or like, so for example, like we're playing the Denver Nuggets, I would say 20-piece nugget.
Love it. I love this so much. I love it.
I start using like props. It became a whole thing, and did it the entire season. But I would say like, yeah, I think the biggest things I took from that is, number one, even though in the beginning where it was tough, I just felt like he saw something in me that he felt, in which he said that, I think you're the perfect person for this. And in my mind, I didn't even know how, because it's like, I'm not like a rah-rah hype guy. So, he saw something in me. For me, I didn't think I could do that, and I'm thinking about like, what am I going to say, if we lose a couple games in a row, or like, what am I going to say, like in the playoffs? Like, I thought we were going to stop it in the playoffs, and I did it all throughout the playoffs.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And during that time, it's like, there's no like media access and all that. So like nobody knew that this happened.
That is really cool. Thank you for sharing that. That is so cool. I was actually looking at some things about the Celtics before we were chatting, and I saw a couple different things not related to that, but that they put on water bottles. It's all about 18, different here. So, so some different things that almost is like a mantra, or that they were holding on to like on that championship run, really the whole season. So I think that is so cool.
Your point too, but the whole thing was about mindset. That's right. His whole thing was about, I just want guys to lock in. That's what it's about. So it's like that whole thing is about mindfulness. That's all it's about.
It is. And, I teach this to my team. So whether it's like a reset button or like, and for this, it's like the start of the game. The 3 claps is amazing. They obviously anchored in and associated that with, we need to lock in. And then the fact that you added something fun to it, different each place you were at, there was probably a lot of pressure to get those next level.
It was definitely pressure. Like it was not easy at all. I'll tell you that.
Right, because it's not the same statement over and over again, which makes it even more cool, really, that you took it that far.
Yeah, funny. Like all throughout the day, people will be like, "What you got tonight? What you got tonight?" That's all you hear.
Sure.
So it's like tough, because if you have one good one, you got to follow up with another good one. If you have a bad one, I definitely had some bad ones.
Right, I'm sure you heard about it.
Good reactions on, but
that is awesome. I couldn't love that more. That is so amazing. And I don't want to say it's simple, but in some ways it was hard for you to come up with the tagline, so to speak, each game. Sure. But in some ways, a quick 3 claps, it's not as complicated. Sometimes people, when I'm working with them, think they have to do some huge kumbaya, major, huge thing. I try to tell them, no, we just need to all get on the same page and get our heads right. And It doesn't have to be something elaborate. 3 claps and your statement. That is amazing. Thank you so much.
Walk out.
There's going to be so many teams that are stealing this and saying, "Oh, guess what we heard?" That's awesome. That is so cool. What a great story. Do we have a name for this? I feel like we should name it something, some sort of mindset tool name. Do you want to name it? Because people are going to steal this.
Yeah. It's crazy because I think around the facility, everybody just say like, what do you have on the sticks or what you got for the sticks? Everybody knows like what that means.
Love it. That's what we're going to call it. I love it. That is so cool. That is such a great story. I have one team that adopted, for example, a motto saying, hold the rope. They do that to remind each other to rise up, hold on to each other. It's become a part of them. They put it on their shirts. They have little ropes on their bags that they bring to practice. When you can anchor to something like that, and the team clearly, like they're elite athletes and they're looking forward to that. Yes. So you can do this. People who are listening right now, you can do something like this for your team. If you want to steal the sticks idea or you want to make up your own, you need to do that. That noise, and Isaiah saying it or whoever says it, the assistant coach, maybe it's a captain on the team, whoever at the youth level, maybe. That is how we know we are locked in and the game's about to start. I feel like that's like golden, that people are just going to love that. I want to ask you, if you had to describe your journey to get to where you are now with the Celtics, how would you describe it? And tell us a little bit about how that happened and what type of mindset did you use? And maybe what did you see along the way with these elite athletes that you get to guide?
No, for sure. It was, it was definitely non-linear. It was not as easy as people say, go to college, do this, and it's going to happen. Definitely some ups and downs, some, rejections and stuff. But I think, and I'm going to get into it, but I think the biggest thing is that I just knew that I had to keep pushing forward. So after Delaware State, I knew I wanted to continue and get my master's right away. While I was at Delaware State, I was interning with the football team. And it was funny because I always tell people to get experience. And sometimes certain experiences can show you that you don't want to do a certain thing. It's not always about, experience is not always, about good thing necessarily.
You learn a lot, right?
I was working with the football team and I got hired for an internship. And he said, okay, I'll see you tomorrow, 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, huh? 4 o'clock in the morning, and obviously I went every day, but I was like, I don't know if college football is for me per se. I always say that joke, but no, I knew I wanted to continue to further my education and my experience at the same time. So I was on the hunt to be a graduate assistant, in which you go to grad school and then you also, work how to get the academic side and the practical side at the same time. Long Island University in Brooklyn had a position open to be a graduate assistant, applied, got into the program at the graduate assistant position. And they didn't have football there, so their main sport was basketball. I honestly never really was into basketball. I've always been a football guy. Even coming up, I wanted to work in the NFL. That's always kind of really been my career path, what I wanted to do, even up until that point. And the reason I went to school in New York is to try to be around some of the sports teams. I know there's a big market of sports teams, so I figured that would be a good leeway for me to get into. And so I was like, all right, there's no football, so I guess I'll take basketball. And another kind of mindset shift is I wasn't really familiar with other sports. So he was like, well, no, you don't have basketball. You have field hockey and lacrosse. And
okay, you got to take what you're given.
Yeah, and just even looking back at it now, I'm so glad he did that because I'm happy that I had so much exposure to different sports and different movements and working with different athletes. It really helped me to be who I am today. That's another thing that taught me back then is to always be open-minded and learn, about different ways to train athletes with field hockey. And it was good for me too because that was my first time really running my own program. I needed that. It was the first year of the field hockey team. So it was like my first year. It's like 18 new freshmen. And we're just all learning together. And to be honest, I'm teaching them how to live.
I think that's so important for people to really take that in and absorb it. Because I heard you say a couple of things there that I don't want people to just let go by. Number one, that you were given something that you thought, I don't really know if I want to do this field hockey. I thought I was going to do football. You have to be open you have to be willing to start somewhere and learn from that. Sometimes people will quickly say, like, no, I'm not going to do that. They are missing out because, like you said, you learn so much from that. And then when you just said that we were growing together and doing this together, that is such an important piece too. Everyone thinks that you have to be so far along and everyone else knows what they're doing and I can't do this yet. I'm waiting till this happens. Just do it. Get in there and do it. There's everyone who's listening right now, because you will grow together. There will be people. I'm sure Isaiah's had people, and everyone listening, myself included, literally today have people that are helping me to grow. You learn that along the way. You grow with them. I think that's so important for people to pay attention to that and don't just let that kind of cruise on by while we're chatting, because a lot of people will say, no, I'm not doing that. That's not what I want to do. You have to be open. I always tell people, if not this, something better. You know, you thought football, but when I did my stalking and I was reading some articles about you, there's some pretty cool things about you and the basketball teams out there now. I personally think it was where you were meant to be. Sure. I like to say, if not this, something better. All right, well, keep going. So then after you were doing the field hockey teams, you know,
field hockey and soccer team, and it was good. Mm-hmm. Like that was like really good development for me there, and just kind of working with everybody and having the responsibility of those teams. The whole time I'm still, so this is where I'm on LinkedIn. I'm trying to make connections now. So I'm reaching out to NFL strength coaches, NBA strength coaches. I'm trying to get my foot in the door in professional sports. Football was still priority, but I was open to other things. And I will never forget one night I was scrolling on Twitter and I was following the Pacers director of performance. And he tweeted one day that he was looking for an intern. And I was like, I can't believe what I'm seeing right now.
Yeah.
The power of social media, you know. I ended up just sending him a message via Twitter, like, hey, you know, I see your opening. You know, I'm very interested. And he wrote me back and said, send your resume to me. And there, like, that's when everything really started turning, because they reached out to interview me.
Nice.
And so I had the interview. Thought it went really well. I didn't hear nothing back for like 3 weeks. So I kind of figured that it was over. And then I ended up getting an email one day and getting the position, Pacers internship position. And
incredible.
Because even then I was like, oh, perfect. I can do this internship for a semester, and then that'll be on my resume. And now hopefully NFL teams will see me.
You were still thinking NFL. Okay.
Right?
So what did you do in those 3 weeks when I know you were like, oh, maybe it's not going to happen? Can you think back? Were there negative thoughts creeping through your brain? Was there anything that you do? Maybe you still do it. What do you do there if someone could steal that?
It made me like, because that was my first professional, I guess, any interview or anything like that. And so I was just so nervous because I'm like, well, maybe I didn't do well. I haven't heard anything. And I sent a follow-up email. I didn't get anything. And I was like, well, maybe pro sports is not for me. Maybe too soon. You know, I was kind of really second guessing myself, because when you don't know anything, all you have is your thoughts.
Right.
And it was hard. Like I mentioned, it was hard for me to compare, you know, that interview to like my GA interview or like undergrad internship. I'm like, oh, this is like a real interview right here. So I'm like, I didn't do well, and kind of down on myself, you know, to be honest. I was like, you know, worst come to worst, I just, you know, come back from my second year of my GA position. Life changed on that one day in April 2017 when I got that email that I got the position. And it was a fall semester internship. So like supposed to be from September to December. Packed up my Buick and I drove to Indiana in late August. It was really just eye opener. You know, I was at a small school at LIU Brooklyn, not like many resources at all. Like it wasn't great. Being in that for a year to like walking in that first day in the Pacers facility, I'm like, because I didn't go there to interview like that. It was just on the phone. When I got there, it was just like, I don't know, it was just like a new life started, to be honest.
Yeah, you know? I'm sure. It's like, did it feel like surreal, so to speak?
It just felt surreal. And, you know, for me, I know at the time, like really 1 year of experience doing the GA. Like I was an intern in undergrad. It was more so just like a student intern, like cleaning up. It wasn't really, you know, in the trenches of the job. I got there, you'd say, I'm going to ask questions every day and I'm just going to work hard every day. That's
Oh, whoever's listening right now, could you please go back and rewind that? He said, I'm going to ask questions every day and work hard. Did I get that right?
Yep.
If you do that, ask questions, work hard. And by the way, after you ask the questions, listen to the answers and take action, in case someone's like, okay, I'll just ask questions. Obviously, you have to be an active listener and then take action. Hey, I'm interrupting this podcast to tell you that it is time to help your child turn their nerves into confidence. If you are tired of trying to convince them to see themselves through your eyes, you need to download Turning Nerves into Confidence. I created this resource exactly from what I teach my athletes in workshops. I give the same thing to my own children. These are easy to use tools to help your child develop confidence boosting strategies. If you want your child to embrace challenges with a growth mindset, go click on the worksheet and start using it today. I'm telling you, Isaiah, this is going to be like my number one episode here. So much gold that people are going to steal.
Sure. Yeah,
Did you have a point where you thought, I love being in the basketball arenas? Like, when did that happen?
I was already loving it. And like I said, I wasn't training anybody. I was doing grunt work. I was stocking fridges. I was making Gatorade. But it's so crazy. I look back at it, like, that's why it makes me kind of so proud of myself, because I love doing that stuff. Right? If I'm going to stock the fridge, it's going to be the best fridge that's ever been stocked. Every label is going to be spaced a certain way. I'm going to make sure, the things that I can control, I'm going to make sure that it's, it looks good and is done every day.
That's why you clap the sticks, by the way. That's why, because they knew that you would be coming in there 3 claps with something awesome to say. I'm just saying, it goes all the way back to those Gatorade bottles. I'm just saying. All right, keep going.
Sure. But what really changed everything is, so like I mentioned, that was supposed to be a fall semester internship. 2 weeks into it, my boss who came to me and said, we want you to stay for the rest of the season.
Wow.
And that never happens. Like, they do theirs by the semester.
Okay.
They made some adjustments and stuff for me to be able to do that. And
that's amazing.
I had a decision to make, because I was supposed to go back to school, finish my degree. I reached out to my academic advisor and I said, well, I got an opportunity to stay. I know I'm supposed to come back. I personally feel like I should stay. I don't know what this may lead to, but I can finish the master's later. But I got to stay and take this opportunity.
Yeah, so you bet on yourself. I love it.
But they actually end up being very supportive and end up helping me make my classes online and stuff. So everything really worked out.
It did. It did.
So I stayed for the rest of the season, but that I forgot to mention, when I first started, I told myself, regardless if I stay here or not, I didn't travel with the team, but I was like, I worked every home game. That means I'm going to see opposing team strength coaches 41 times. I'm going to try to meet every single strength coach on an opposing team. So now I can start, getting the name to face. And so at the end of the season of that, I had a great internship. And that's one thing, if people that are listening, do those little things well, because that's how you build trust, whether that's doing your chores at home to build trust with your parents, whether that's doing your schoolwork to build trust with your teachers, and so on and so forth with the coaches. Do the small things well. That's how you gain trust. And for me, mopping floors and setting the weight room up and making Gatorade, I did that stuff every day. And you'll trust in me to start working with athletes. 2-3 months later, now I'm training guys. They're letting me stay back with the guys doing rehab. I'm the intern. I just think that went a long way.
Yeah, I was going to ask you at one point, what was a piece of advice you would give? I feel like you just answered it. I was going to say, do you have a piece of advice either for athletes or parents? I think that is incredible advice to say to someone, do the little things and do them well.
For sure.
Because people notice that. And then when they say, we need someone who we can trust to get it done, they're going to come to you. So I
ended up staying through the summer as well. So they helped me out to stay throughout the whole summer. And when internship did end, but I made some great connections throughout that season. For the season, I started reaching out to everybody I connected to, asking if they had internships, because I still felt like I personally needed more development. So I was still trying to find another internship. During that time, I did have some interviews with some G League teams. That's good experience. I didn't get them. was able to take something from every single interview. I learned something. I get the job. I would ask for feedback on how I could have improved. That was happening around that time too. It definitely wasn't all peachy.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because sometimes people see things and think, oh, well, look at him. He's got this, that, and the other thing. He can do it because of this. I can't. And it isn't all sunshine and rainbows or peachy. It isn't that for most people. There's a rare story that, they're riding a unicorn and everything works out, but it's pretty rare. That's pretty rare.
Sure. So I was reaching out to teams. And I reached out to the Warriors looking for an internship. And I remember the response was, you're not looking for an internship, but we are looking for a head strength coach for our G League team, if you're interested in that. And I was like, oh, well, I mean, I wasn't, but I would definitely,
I am now. Right.
For sure. And I remember kind of getting that. And I'm, that feeling of like I'm actually really going for this. Like, this was like a big step. I don't want to call it like nervous, but like I mentioned, it was just a big step in life. And I wanted to go for it. I'll never back down from any opportunity. And like, if it's for me, it's for me.
So what would you say to someone who had a big step? I mean, even if it wasn't with the Golden State Warriors, if they had a big step right now in life, wherever they are, however old they are, maybe they're a high schooler, maybe they're 45. If you could think about that time for you, what would you say to them? If they are thinking, I really want to take this, maybe it's nerves or a little fear, what would you say to them if you could give them some advice?
Yeah, I would probably say prepare for it and go for it. When I say prepare for it, I mean, look at everything. How does this affect me? How does it affect my family, right? Where can this take me, right? Are there more positives than negatives? So really vet it out, do it thoroughly. But I feel now like that feeling is like, can take you far. Also feels like a face your fears type of feeling as well. Like that's what I gained from that, right. Cause like that's the same feeling I get from at the top of a roller coaster, right? Or it's the same feeling I get in crunch time of a game. But yeah, that would probably be my piece of advice.
Yeah, I think that's great.
And I feel like that's what I did during that time.
And once you do it, people who are listening, and you can tell me if this has ever happened to you, but for myself, once you face your fears and you go for it, weigh the pros and cons, and then you decide to go for it, then you can say, I've done this before. I've done things before that were scary, and maybe it worked out, maybe it didn't, but I can do things like this. I can take the chance. You can remind yourself, I've been in a situation before where I've done something. Maybe it's something different. Your brain actually can remember those things. You can train yourself to say, I've done scary things before. Sure. Great advice. You're working with the Warriors now, right?
So I ended up getting the job. And remember I mentioned I thought that Pacers interview was hard. The Warriors interview was like
another level. Okay. I'm sure.
And it was multiple interviews with different people. And another thing I learned in college when I was getting involved is being able to explain things differently to different people. So
tell me more about that.
So my senior year of college, I was student government president. I was president of the Student Body Association. I worked directly with my executive board. We're students, but our advisors are the advisors of the Department of Student Leadership and Activities, right?
So professors or at the college?
At the college, yep. That's who we report to in the student activity board. But then we also, have to connect with the students, right? But then we also have to connect with this, the senior vice president or the president of the school or different people. And that message is always going to be different.
Right. Different stakeholders want to hear different things.
Yes.
Right.
That's the point. Yes. So that's the point I'm trying to make. So going back to that interview is I'm interviewing with the strength coach of the Warriors, and now I'm interviewing with the head coach of the G League, the general manager of the G League, right? The athletic trainer of the G League, so how I communicate with them, it could be the same message, but I'm getting across differently to different people. I'm not speaking in anatomy terms to the general manager, but I can speak anatomy terms to the athletic trainer.
Totally makes sense. Yeah.
And the questions all my life coming up have always been about, the conditioning questions or give me a strength and a weakness or things like that. But Now I'm starting to get questions about how you're going to get athletes to buy in. And I'm like,
Hmm.
never.
I'm going to clap sticks. I'm going to clap sticks in the locker room.
Exactly. No, for sure. I just started, getting different types of, experience with interviews with different stakeholders. But ultimately, ended up getting that position. It was an amazing role. It was like next step for me of like in my own now professional team, as the head strength coach for the G League team. But then I also was an assistant with the Warriors whenever our season was over. So I was kind of getting the best of both worlds. Running my own team, but still getting that development as an assistant. So I did that for 2 years, and it was great. Worked with great people. In December of 2020, I heard about the Celtics position, and another little piece of advice is, form good relationships with people that you work with. Because now we're getting into the who and people being able to vouch for you. And worked with someone my second year at Golden State who worked under my current boss right now in Boston. And
who did you say is your current boss? Okay. I feel like we should turn the volume up on that one. So everyone who's listening right now, again, doesn't matter how old you are, if you're going to have your athlete put this podcast in their ears and listen, relationships are so incredibly important because Isaiah just told you. So say it again.
Yeah, so at the Warriors, one of my coworkers used to work under my current boss here.
Okay. You just never know where people are going to end up. I can tell you personally, I'm not working for the Warriors or the Celtics, but when I left my teaching career and went into doing these workshops and being a speaker, the first engagements that I got were from people who worked in the school district with me and had left and gone other places and saw what I was doing and reached out to me and said, come and talk to my nonprofit, come and be the speaker at our, organization. I said, I didn't even know you knew what I was doing. But they said, when we worked with you, at the high school, and, it goes back to putting those Gatorades, in the fridge a certain sort of way. And you just never know. So right now, if you're a high school athlete, if you're a college athlete, if you're on that executive board, or even if you're not the president of the student union, I tell athletes all the time, you don't have to have the title of leader to be a leader. Wherever you are building relationships, I've really heard Isaiah say this numerous times during our conversation when he's reaching out on LinkedIn, when he's talking with people. He said, I'm determined to meet every performance coach when I'm getting these home games here. That is relationship building. And when you leave a positive experience with someone, and it's not fake, it has to be authentic. I'm not saying, that you're going to go be that toxic positivity. I'm not for that at all. That is not me. If you are trying to focus on anything and you take anything from our conversation, I want you to take a lot, but if you take a really big one, relationships are huge. And that is not just for the athlete. That is for my coaches that listen as well. Let me tell you, you have athletes and students. Like, I'm talking to Isaiah right now. Honestly, like, I would have never been able to talk to the performance coach of the Celtics if I didn't have a relationship with Isaiah, a teacher-student relationship. I don't want anybody like rewinding this podcast saying anything weird, but if we didn't have a good rapport when when I was a teacher and he was a student. So you have to build relationships. That's what it's all about as a teacher, as a coach, I feel like I could go on and on. I won't, but I just want to make sure that piece of advice is something that you steal from Isaiah. So thank you for saying that really numerous times. But so then you're now at the Celtics, and I gotta throw something in here about the Celtics when I did my stalking a little bit. I hear that you are the DJ of the Celtics, and that's kind of how, you got your, I don't want to say like start with, building that rapport with the team, but maybe that's how you built relationships a little bit. Is that true?
Yes, that's very true. Relationships are big for me. It's one of my core values. Well, since I've been in the league, that's one way where I've always been able to connect with guys. Music. I love music. I love asking people about who they listen to, what albums they like. And that always just kind of created relationships, whether it's me putting them on music, them putting me on. and then me just playing it, whether it's shoot around or play it right before the game. Sometimes they're about to run out. That's another way too, where I kind of get my mind right, in music and certain songs and things like that. So like, that's
I
one
love
thing.
that you said that, because I do that with a lot of athletes, and athletes share that with me. That's part of their pregame and postgame routine.
Sure.
Do you have a song that you love that you use for yourself?
Ooh, I got so many.
Question.
Tough question. Yeah. If I had to pick one as get me ready for a game, I'll probably say like 50 Cent Mini Men.
Okay. All right, cool. I love that you bring music into it. I think that is such a great way to, like you said, get your head ready for the game. So now you're at the Celtics and you're working with elite athletes. You obviously, through that whole journey with your internship and just the interviews, different things, even just talking with the different performance coaches. When you are working with these athletes, and beyond the clapping in the locker room, whether it's pregame, practice, wherever it is, what is something that even an elite athlete might struggle with or need to work on, or they focus on related to mindset, that maybe somebody who's at the high school or college level could say, oh, well, I have to figure out a plan for that too?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'll say the toughest thing that I've seen maybe is probably just adjusting to everything that, they have to go through as a professional athlete or just an athlete in general, whether it's one, just the stresses of performing every day or every game, right? You got a lot of stakes, whether that's contractually or personally or, whatever's going on. Things are constantly pulled, whether it's, us asking them to do things, whether it's family, whether it's friends, whether it's that want them to sign autographs or whether it's something they got to do for the team. And that's one thing that I've kind of always seen as the biggest adjustments for guys or that they talk about having to deal with.
And is there something that they do, would you say, with that to keep that balance if they're a student athlete?
One thing that I've been seeing too is just they've been talking to more people about, advice. You hear them talk to, coaches who played before and gain advice from them, or you talk to us, and because we spend so much time with these guys, right? And we have a lot of just interaction with them, conversations with them, so they may even ask my advice on certain things. Obviously I give where I can, but I would probably say that's the biggest thing. I've heard guys say like they had to learn how to tell people no and how to prioritize and things like that. And I feel like any athlete or person could relate to that, whether high school athlete, you got to one, school is a priority, right? And school's not right. You can't get on the field, can't get on the court, right? You got, your personal life, you got friends, you got family. I think that goes for anybody. And I think just learning how to balance everything out, figure out what's important at the time, not worry about or feed into the extra stuff that doesn't really matter, but just keeping the, focus at hand.
I think that's something that really anyone could relate to, being able to balance everything. It is hard for people to say no sometimes, especially if you enjoy some different things or want to do different things, but you have to say no sometimes, focusing on your goals, or you have other commitments. The power of no is important, and no is a complete sentence. It's hard to say sometimes, but myself included, I feel guilty sometimes, and I like, okay, but you have to learn to say no, or else you could become so overwhelmed and stressed, and then it just has a ripple effect into everything, and it'll impact things in a negative way if you don't. I like that, the balance. I don't want to keep you here forever. I know you're incredibly busy. Is there anything else that you want to share with anybody who's listening, or places people can follow you to steal some of your amazing tips?
We'll say, and I know you mentioned before we talked last about, obviously working with elite athletes, and just going back one more time about the networking piece. Even when I left the Warriors and I was already with the Celtics, I got a call from Mike Brown, who is now the head coach of the Sacramento Kings, but he was an assistant with the Warriors. And when he got the job as the head coach of the Nigerian national team for the Olympics, he reached out to me, to be a part of it. And,
I'm glad you brought that up. I did see that.
And that for me was just a testament to, one, the relationships and, him seeing my work and, me not even being there anymore, still reaching out to me. I think that just goes back to, people say it's not about what you know, who you know, but I also think it's how they know you, right? And,
So true.
How they view you, how, they've seen your work. And so for me, that was just a testament that you never know who's watching, because we really didn't have a lot of, and like, I didn't work hand in hand with him, but just him having that trust in me to lead that and, be able to go to the Afro basket tournament and, be a part of the Olympic staff in 2020 or 2021 rather. That was just an amazing experience. So
yeah, I mean, right back to those relationships again.
Yeah.
And honestly, and you, let's just
Yeah.
say that. I mean, you and your level of commitment and dedication to things, I think that has to be said too, because you can build all the relationships, those people who are listening, but you have to be genuine and be dedicated, be willing to mop the floors, like Isaiah said, be willing to take the field hockey and soccer team and learn from it, and be willing to reach out. You be that person, be willing to learn. So I'm so incredibly proud to just know you as a human. I know there was a big gap in time where I would see glimpses of things on Facebook in different places. I'm like, wow, that's awesome. I'm so happy and proud for him. But it is so incredible to hear you talk about it. And it's an honor to talk to you about your journey. And I'm really proud of you. I think that you're a true example, someone who works hard and is genuine and, and now is sharing it with people. That in itself too is of such immense value. So thank you for that. And, it's truly an honor. So, and I got to tell you, we were in Boston. I guess it was before the pandemic. We love the city of Boston. Actually, our dog is named Boston after visiting there.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
We got a dog right before pandemic and the kids were fighting. They didn't know what to name the dog. And then they were like, how about Boston? And I will say, because we live right outside of Philly, that when we are walking the dog, if it's not our neighbors, if we're somewhere else, somewhere taking the dog for a walk, when we tell people the dog's name is Boston, people are like, what? You're not Philly fans? Like, you don't love the Eagles? We're like, we love the Phillies. We love the Eagles. We go through the whole thing. Like, we are Sixers fans, but we love the city of Boston. And my husband is actually a huge Boston Red Sox fan too. But anyway, we named the dog Boston. And probably for a good 6 months, my daughter, who's an 11th grader in high school now, was saying she's wicked smart. He was trying to do the Boston accent. We're like, oh my goodness, if she doesn't stop saying that, it's an amazing city. So I hope you're enjoying it too while you were there. It's a really cool city. I always ask my guests this question at the end of our podcast. If you had the opportunity to swap lives with anyone just for 1 week, we don't want you to do this forever because you are amazing. Who would you swap lives with and why?
Oh, that's a good question. I think I would probably swap lives with Jay-Z.
Okay.
Because one, I just like how he had his rap career, but always just kind of thinking about the future and being innovative with businesses and partnerships. And that's one thing that, I see for myself. I love strength and conditioning. But I have so much more that I want to accomplish while I'm doing this and then even after this. Just looking at, like I said, the connections, the partnerships, and that's one area now starting to transition to my life is more about businesses and investing and meeting different people who are involved in creating businesses and stuff like that. So this is mindset. And then, he talks about it a lot through his music. That's kind of how I get nuggets, like this.
Gotcha. Yeah, I love it. I think probably we could have like a whole series of talks. I might have to have you on when talking about all those other things. Because again, it's that relationships, building the businesses. Amazing choice for Jay-Z. I just want to thank you again for coming on. Is there anywhere where people can follow you if you put anything up about strength training or sports performance, and any specific links or something that people would follow you, or maybe even just the Celtics?
Yeah. So actually 3. One, I guess for any students out there or really anybody, I film videos every year on our Junior Celtics page. I can send you the link as well too.
Yeah, definitely do.
I actually just did one yesterday where we kind of go through a series of body weight exercises you can do at home. I demonstrate them and I talk about them, so anybody can kind of go on there and see that. So that's number one. And I'll make sure I send you that link.
Perfect.
You just want to just send me a message or anything like that. LinkedIn is fine, just Isaiah Covington. And then lastly, Instagram. I don't really post like much like sport performance stuff, but even just to stay connected is just number one, ZAY _. And if you want to hit me up with a message or anything like that on there too, feel free. So I would say those 3 things for just communication or content purposes.
Perfect. I love it. Thank you so much. And I'm sure people will be checking out those videos and probably following you in all the different places, because Isaiah has a ton of wisdom to share. I would keep him here forever, but I don't want to do that because I know he's had a long day. Thank you again, Isaiah, for hanging out with me on The Champion Within. And I am excited to share this episode with all of our listeners.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. It's been great. And we definitely have to do this again, whether it's a different topic or wherever. It's been awesome. And I want to hear more about your journey too and how you kind of got, into this space as well too. So, we'll definitely have to do that. We'll have to chat that before.
Definitely will. Thanks for hanging out with me today. Whether you are going to coach, teach, cheer from the stands, or hit the field yourself, remember, mindset is everything. Don't forget to follow the show, because we all need a little extra motivation, humor, and some sanity in our busy lives. Go unleash that champion within you, one step at a time. I'm rooting for you always.